Just because it's called a submachine gun doesn't mean it's any less important than a full machine gun. The newest official weapon to fill the role for the Army just came out last year. It's called the APC9K, made by Brugger and Thompson, and that reminds me of Wallace and Gromit for some reason. Those two dudes always getting in trouble. Now there's two guys I would buy a gun from. Of course, the SEALs are famous for sporting the MP5 here and there, but this is huge news because it's the first official submachine gun that the Army's adopting, and it's got new capabilities that the MP5 can't touch. In this video, we'll go over everything we need to know about the Army's new submachine gun, as well as the with the Thompson. We'll wrap it up with some of the reasons why submachine guns have fallen out of favor recently. Welcome everyone to Task and Purpose. I'm Chris Cappy. I'm excited about this one. We haven't had an official submachine gun since the grease gun in World War II, which of course replaced the infamous Thompson, known more for its gangster history in the Mafia than its military track record. Before we get into the whole debate about which weapon, which gun is best, or which caliber has the most advantages, let's take a look at what we're working with here. First of all, the company is known for creating amazing high-end weapons, especially SMGs and pistol calibers, which explains why this weapon is so expensive. B&T was actually originally a suppressor manufacturer. They slowly expanded into making weapons accessories. Until they got this contract, they were relatively unknown. The total value of the contract, if the government decides to move forward with purchasing the full order, will be $2.5 million. Right now, they're just dipping their governmental toes in the water by grabbing just 350 in their initial buy to test them out, and they have the option of getting an additional 1,000 more if the water feels right. The APC9K can fire 9mm rounds from a closed bolt position at an astounding rate of 1,080 rounds per minute. It uses a blowback system. It has a collapsible stock and a 20-round magazine. There's also a version of the weapon in .45 caliber, but we'll have to wait to see if the Army orders any of those. And I would guess that's unlikely since Big Army likes to keep its ammo types to a minimum for logistical purposes. From expert users of the new weapon, feedback has been highly positive. They say the trigger is on point, as opposed to complaints about the MP5's trigger. And if you're wondering why we ever even need a personal defense weapon, you're in good company, because the Army has largely gotten rid of the role. When you think about it, the military in the past had a dedicated submachine gun role in each squad. And why is that no longer the case? Now that role has been replaced, likely because the M4 rifle was able to fill the requirement for both the riflemen and what the submachine gunners were supposed to be in the past. During World War II, the weapons performed differently. The slower rate of fire and smaller magazine of the rifles, like the M1 Garand, for instance, meant there was a capabilities gap between the M1 and the bar. Before the 1990s, there also wasn't the same amount of reliable and effective body armor. So if you brought an MP5 out to play back then, you probably weren't up against much armor. Today, many forces use body armor that can stop up to a .7.62 round. SEALs don't want to jump onto a hijacked cargo boat to fire a bunch of 9mm rounds that just bounce off the terrorist suit jackets. Yeah, you can buy suit jackets now that are made of entirely body armor for like $800. The reason we still need the submachine gun role in the military today is far different. This APC9K will be used almost exclusively to protect our VIPs. Generals, possibly politicians, the bodyguards and personal defense details will probably be the ones outfitted with this submachine gun, the APC9K. This is because the tool is best used in very unique situations. So if you're a private in some infantry line unit, don't expect to be opening up a brand new box of APC9s anytime soon. This isn't for you. That's okay, it's not for me either. I'd probably lose mine in a porta-john along with my nods on day one. Bodyguards need to be able to get in and out of vehicles quickly. And they also want to have a high volume of fire, but they can only expect to be engaging at close distances. The maximum effective range for this weapon is only about 100 meters. Its advantages are its ability to lay down a lot of suppressive fire accurately and at a short range. The APC9K is perfectly designed for this purpose. The standard barrel length is 7 inches, or a 5.5-inch shorter barrel is also available. It has the ability to feed from Glock magazines. The weapon only weighs 5 pounds compared to the 6.8 MP5 weight. The MP5 has in the past seen extensive use by the Navy SEALs because of its compact, lightweight profile. Because of the SEALs' use, as well as John McClane and Rainbow Six games, the MP5 is almost as iconic as the M4 itself, so it is hard to see it go. Why'd the military go with this new weapon instead of the old tried and true MP5. The APC9K has some huge improvements over that weapon. The reload process for the MP5 is kind of awkward. You have to actually pull the magazine out of the magazine well, slap the charging handle down. The APC9, on the other hand, has an easier reload process. You can hit the bolt release with your trigger finger. It also has been developed for easy use with the Picatinny rail system, so you can mount laser sight, flashlight, unlike the MP5, which doesn't have an easy to use rail system integrated into it. How did we end up here at the APC9K in all of its submachine beautiful glory? It was a long road from the original submachine gun. The Germans and Austrians were the first to experiment with trying to convert pistols into submachine guns. They added a folding stock and a drum magazine to a Luger, for instance, so they could help with clearing out trenches of World War I. The Thompson. The weapon was invented by John Thompson in 1918, right after World War I. It fired a large .45 caliber cartridge, which gives it a maximum effective range of 150 meters. The original version of the M1919 had a higher rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute, but they lowered it later to 600 rounds per minute and a muzzle velocity of 285 meters per second. The Thompson machine gun saw action with the military first in World War II, largely by paratroopers who would be behind enemy lines engaged in close fighting throughout the invasion of France. One of the only complaints you'll hear about this weapon is its weight at 10 pounds, which is about as much as a grand. One of the advantages to the submachine gun is that it's supposed to be lighter. Back then, the Thompson was one of those guns that you could literally make the case that it changed the world. It put enough firepower into the hands of criminals that they could run and protect their massive Prohibition-era enterprises. The iconic image of a fedora and a Thompson machine gun in a violin case from the 1920s is such a powerful look, it still resonates with us today. It earned the nickname Tommy Gun and Chicago Typewriter. To address the few issues with the Thompson, the military went with the M3, also known as the grease gun. It was also a .45 caliber automatic, but it was lighter weight and it wasn't as expensive to manufacture. They done goofed up when they tried to order 1,000 of the M3 submachine guns chambered in 9mm, but without any modifications to the iron sights, so the weapon fired high at 100 meters. The military decided this wasn't that big of a deal and pushed forward with them anyway. There's a price associated with a weapon being made for cheap. They often misfired, the rear sight got bent, and they could be rendered useless if it was dropped on the dust cover, which would then lead to double feeds. The grease gun saw combat during the late stages of World War II and then during the Korean War. In Vietnam and afterwards, there was very limited use of the submachine gun due to the changing nature of warfare at the time. Police forces and SWAT units around the world still use submachine guns extensively because they're great for close quarters combat and are seen as having a lower profile than walking around with rifles. Thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe. Chris Cappy from Task and Purpose out.